Welcome everybody to MogTalk. Today is March 24th, 2018. If you guys are new to MogTalk is a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. Today's topic is going to be a little bit different than normal. We're going to be talking about something that could be sensitive to some people. We're going to be talking about Ungarmax, and we're going to talk about the bands that come after that. We're going to talk about pretty much everything from between white and black. We're not going to talk about it as a white and black thing. There's a lot of gray in there. And so the things that we will say, some people are not going to agree with and be very passionate about, and I apologize for that, but I don't feel like we should avoid it as a topic. So before we get too much in there, I want you guys to know who we have on the show and who's going to be talking about it. I'm going to start here with Kai. Kai, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kaiyoko Star. I'm a long-time MMO player all the way back to Final Fantasy XI when it came out. And I've played like WoW, all that kind of stuff. And now Final Fantasy XIV, I'd say I'm kind of like semi-hardcore. And some people probably know me from being Naruto Star's husband, or maybe you know me from being the fashion report person. So
that's what I know right now. I relate you to the fashion report person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And next we have with us, he's been on the show a few times here, 2 times actually so far, Mr. Yuki. Yuki, how you doing, buddy? Can you tell everybody who you are? Yuki's frozen. Yuki's dead. Oh my God, no. The show just started and he's already dead. Oh no, Yuki. Yuki, why? We were just in the intro. He'll come back here. We'll start with half of a face of Kiyo. Kiyo, can you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick while we're waiting on Yuki to get back?
Wait, why am I half of a face? What happened to me? Oh, because
his camera went away, and so it moved it on the window, and so it's okay.
Hey, my in-game name is Kionu on Gilgamesh. I'm technically the FC leader of Elysium. I've been playing this game for way too long, and I guess world first Sigmascape. Yay! I've got all these accolades.
Yeah,
I'm just a normal guy though.
Just a normal guy, world firsting and running a world first FC. Are you guys still operating as a council, or is it like you as the leader now?
I just hold the tag. We're still council.
Okay. I was curious about that.
It's like a hot potato. We just pass the leadership around, and right now it's sitting in my pocket. So
fair enough. So you could completely destroy Elysium right now.
I have the power.
Okay.
Rend it asunder, yes.
Excellent. All right, we'll sit here and we'll wait for Yuki. I'll have to fix this in the video. Usually I don't have to edit Mog Talks afterwards, but maybe we'll bullshit for a little bit while we're waiting on Yuki to get back, and then we'll continue the show here. Holy shit, I think he got it working. All right, we can mute. We'll mute Yuki again. Yuki, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, buddy.
Oh my.
What happened to you, man?
That was really unfortunate.
You messed up the whole show. Now we gotta start over again.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. I'll cut it in post. We'll make it work. All right, Yuki, are you okay now?
Yeah. That was I don't know what happened really. It just suddenly decided to cut out.
Okay. Do you have it happen a lot? Is it like?
No, not at all.
Wow. You're getting DDoS. Somebody doesn't like you being on Mog Talk.
Probably.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, Yuki, go ahead and introduce yourself now after that crazy situation.
So, my name is Yuki. So I stream Final Fantasy XIV. A little bit here and there. I used to stream more, but now it's like now it's just not quite as much as before. I did write a warrior guide that lasted for about 6 months before SC decided to completely change how the class was played, and then now I don't have the motivation to write another one.
Okay.
That's what I've done in the community.
Okay.
I hardcore raid a little bit, but yeah.
You hardcore raid on the side.
On the side.
Okay.
On the side.
Okay, I got you.
Not the main job, but
I got you, man. All right. Now you guys know everybody. We're all back here. We can start off the show. We're going to have a great conversation here. Before we start, there is some stuff that I want to say. Basically, I want to state this, I guess, as the representative of MogTalk, where, it stands on the subject of Ungarmax and things that are like it. I don't condone game-breaking mechanics, game-breaking bugs, things that completely destroy the game. But, and also, I guess I'll say this, I'll support Square Enix decisions on what they do and everything. But that being said, I don't believe this is a black and white situation, which is why we're having the show that we're having today. There'll be a lot of comments that I'm going to make that might most likely at least seem supportive of Ungarmax, but that's just to play devil's advocate, to explore the situation, to give different perspectives and not keep us on the, no, cheating is bad, you can't do it, and just hit you guys with a rule the entire time. I want to talk about it. So, with that being said, someone's going to come in later in the podcast and they're going to hear me saying stuff and they're going to be like, who the fuck is this? Why is he have a stream? And they're going to try to report me and everything else. But I hope that you guys understand this is just so we can talk about it. I think there needs to be a conversation. So, to start the show off, I do want to go ahead and explain what Ungarmax is, because some of you might not even know what it is, right? Some of you might be like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never even heard of it. But it was a big deal like a few weeks ago. And I'm going to have one of you guys. Who wants to explain what Ungarmax is?
I can.
All right. Kyo, give us a lowdown. What is Ungarmax?
So Ungarmax is a limit break that they added to squadrons so that when you're in a squadron dungeon, you can have your entire squad use Ungarmax, which does basically a little more damage than an LB1, melee LB1. It also gives a 50% damage bonus to every member of the squad and you for, I think it was 15 seconds or 20 seconds, I'm not sure. So the bug is that you could access this limit break outside of squadron dungeons. It was obviously supposed to be limited to squadron dungeons and only squadrons, but people were able to access this limit break by typing in a command. So this is not using third-party external tools to like input some kind of special command or bypass other methods. It was completely legitimately able to be done from the client, where you just type something into the chat box and Ungarmax would go off. You did still require to have a limit break 1 gauge to do it, but it would give the bonus to everyone in PvE content, which was huge. That buff is massive. So in addition, you could also, if you could have a healer do this limit break. So you could have your Astro do an Ungarmax, and then Celestial Opposition, which would work, and it would extend the entire buff by 10 seconds. You could then also time dilate someone and give a single person 15 seconds more of the buff. And it was just like this that create these situations where suddenly you have, basically Golden Bahamut's damage boost for the first 30 seconds of a fight. And just, what?
Yeah. What does it take? Does it take any of your limit break bar in the actual dungeon itself?
So
Yeah.
I've heard conflicting things saying that in the dungeon you can only get LB1, so
Okay.
it would use the whole thing. And in raid content it would use 1 bar, but someone said it used 2 when they had it.
It's just use 1.
It uses
yeah.
1. Even if you have 2, it will leave whatever's left, which is what's weird compared to any other limit breaks.
Yeah, okay.
So it takes 1 limit break bar, and comparatively to a melee limit break 1, right? It's absurdly stronger.
Yeah.
All right. Absurdly. And then you could buff it and you can abuse it and go into all these different ways of making it do a lot of damage. People who are using it, how much were they boosting their DPS? Like, in comparison to what it would be normally in a regular fight. Like, if you were looking at a parse of an entire O5S versus one that used it, one that didn't use it. Was it, like, double? Was it, like, 500 more for everybody? Was it, like...
I mean, on a test dummy, it's 50% more, but I don't know how to compare it like on a fight basis.
Can you use it more than once in a fight?
You can.
Yeah,
You can use it as many times as you want, as long as you have the LB available.
I mean, it's better than the LB3 if you really get down to it. Like,
yeah, it is.
You constantly just kept using it.
Right. Jeez.
And not to mention a healer can do it. So you have the healer do it right before like Trick and Chain are lining up, and it would be a huge inflation to DPS.
Okay. So basically, we're sitting at a situation to where people could easily just blast through content, destroy any DPS check, and kill content with... They would still have to do the mechanics, but they'd basically... I don't even know what it would look like if you did that much DPS on a fight. like, does it just skip past, like, because if you did it on 05S, I can imagine you just going straight to the train whistle or something. I don't know.
I haven't seen any skips yet, but I haven't really done speedruns yet.
I don't recall ever seeing a skip in 05S.
So not in Ultimate or in Sigmascape, as far as I know. So I haven't seen it.
So the only mechanics you would skip would be the ones at the end of the fight. So you would start cutting off and clipping at the end of the fight.
The other use... Wait. I'm trying to think if there would be... if it would one-shot the tank ghost in the 05S train, and if it would do that fast enough. But...
Well, I mean, like, Warriors can do it. Right?
Warriors can do it, but you burn... You now you don't have to burn a cooldown on it.
Nah.
And then you can just go back out and then burn... Like, if you have LP2, you can burn it again.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously this is something that's wrong, right? This is... on the spectrum of good and bad, this is pretty high up on the bad side, right? This is stuff that you obviously, if you had a debate about it, this is something that you would obviously say, hey, this shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be doing it. And so it's kind of weird when you talk about why players used it. It's kind of obvious, right? They wanted to just kill content really quick. Some people, but most people I think that used it were using it for fun. They weren't using it to clear content, right? Or am I wrong about that?
I feel like most people who discovered that bug would have realized that it was an exploit, and they would not try to use it for anything too serious. At least if they tried to use it and somebody managed to track them down, then there would be...
Because, I mean, we can talk about FF logs, right? So we talk about FF logs, and we talk about there's that whole situation with a black mage at some point where it found out that they were clipping their GCDs way too closely.
Yeah, that was like it back in like Gordius. I remember that.
Yeah. And so that guy was tracked down, and it took a while to get him actually banned, I think, over that. But the point is, like, no one, I think, liked that guy. No one respected that guy. That pretty much, like, excommunicated himself from most of the community. Right? Or am I crazy?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was largely reviled by the community for cheating.
Right.
But there's a portion of the community that just hadn't heard the news. You know, they missed the memo, so they keep playing with him. But yeah, of course, he was reviled for cheating so much. Similarly to how the Ruin 4 hack was, the people that did that were harassed a lot, actually, over it, I'd say.
Yeah. And so really when it comes down to it, it doesn't seem... Those guys took a long time. It was very difficult to get them banned. But this had a much larger response from Square Enix. They instantly figured out, wow, this is easy to do, very easy to manipulate, and then they just start throwing out the bans, right?
There was a little bit of a delay in the response, but it wasn't.
Well, no, the delay, that's one thing I definitely want to talk about. But once they got to it and they're like, hey, this is something that needs to happen, they started just banning people.
They announced that they were going to do it very fast.
Right,
like once the Reddit post happened, they made an announcement very quick, we will take action. And then there was a delay, and then they took it, but at least they said they were going to.
Yeah.
They were collecting the data or whatever.
Right. Do you guys feel like those bans were justified?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they had different levels of bans, right? They had the ban, if I can bring it up, they had the ban where some people were just permanently banned. Well, actually, did anyone get permanently banned?
I don't think it was permanent.
Nobody got permanently banned. I know a few people who got banned in the first wave, and like they got the maximum 9-day ban that usually turns into a permanent ban. They didn't get fully banned.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the largest ban that happened out of this?
I remember one of our people getting a 14 days.
Okay. But I mean, some people, are they still banned right now?
No.
No one's still banned anymore.
No.
And it's been less than 90 days since it happened. So they kind of came back. They were just like, hey guys, it was a slap on the wrist. Was that okay? Like, should anyone got permanently banned from that situation? Or was it just like, hey, look guys, we're serious about this. Don't do it. We see you're cheating. Look, this is your warning ban.
I think slaps on the wrists are really powerful in dissuading people from continuing to cheat, and that they don't do it enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2-day to 9-day bans are great.
I definitely think they need to actually go up on, like, not on this particular situation, but I think they need to be more harsh on their bans, like for different situations.
Well, this is the first time it's really come into a situation to where it seemed like people really should have been banned for this stuff, except for the one guy here or there, right?
For this specific situation, first of all, Ungarmax was like extremely easy to access.
Yeah.
It was literally just type in the command and it's gone. It's done. For the other issues that we were talking about, like the Rune 4 exploit and the Black Mage speed hacking, that was not within the system itself. I believe you have to actually use third-party tools to achieve that. So there was Ungarmax is something that took absolutely zero effort. Like anybody could do it. A lot of people just tried it out after they read the news. And I wouldn't say it's absolutely fair to just give so many people a permaban. But yeah, I think this situation specifically, no, I wouldn't agree with a permaban.
Okay. So, I mean, we got to actually figure out, when we start talking about bans and everything, we have to really go into intentions when people deserve bans or not, right? So if someone's coming into the mix and they're like, hey, I heard you could do this, it'd be like, cool. It's just like glitching out of the map. You're like, hey, can I actually do this? And someone glitches out of the map and they just like, holy shit, my character's in Twilight Zone or something. They're like, hey, this is kind of funny. Why not do this? But when someone glitches out of the map and then they cheat some mechanic of the game and they know they're doing it to cheat that mechanic of the game, that is where the bad part of the situation really comes, right? Do we need to like punish people for being curious and exploring it? Or do we need to reserve all that punishment just for the people who are using it for, I guess, nefarious intentions? Is that the right way to say that?
I would definitely agree. The nefarious part is where the ban needs to come in.
Okay. Because that's really what it comes down to. And I feel like there's so many people, there's so many gray parts about, hey, is this right or is this wrong? I mean, ACT back in the day, when it first came out, it was not seen well, right? Or am I imagining that too? I remember people...
No, everyone was screaming that you'd get banned for it. It was just a huge thing where people were just so nervous to show it on streams. And they thought, and there was a huge following of people that said, you're actually posting ACT, you're going to get banned for a long time. Like when it came out. And so people confronted me all the time because I was one of the early people to stream ACT. Like on my stream, and they were like, are you really sure you want to do that? You're gonna get banned. I guess I'll take the risk.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird because when we start getting into that situation about what's right and wrong, I mean, Ungarmax, again, we can all kind of agree, hey, this is something that you shouldn't be doing. And I think when it comes down to a situation to where, hey, you're able to abuse this to get something in the game that wasn't meant for you to get by abusing it. And that's exactly what Ungarmax was. But when we start going down the line at stuff that we do day to day, some of these things kind of fall in those same lines, just not as large of a factor. For example, you could probably make the argument with ACT in general that ACT allows you to cheat mechanics because it can announce mechanics for you.
Yeah.
And some people see that as, oh, well, then that makes it to where you're supposed to have to pay attention to what's going on the screen. That's part of the mechanic of the game. And so where do we fall in that? What do we say when people use triggers in ACT? Is that just as bad?
I mean, in SE's eyes, it's probably not as bad because they're not banning people for it. And if like, especially because people on stream, I've heard triggers before. Like I've streamed with triggers on, like, they obviously don't care enough to go and like ban people that use triggers. But the reality is if this is breaking their TOS. So what point in time do they start enforcing the TOS and all that kind of stuff? That's kind of how I look at it.
They seem to have a policy about detection that they need to be able to detect in-game what you're doing in order to take action. And anything in ACT, the custom triggers and anything else that you can do in ACT seems to be beyond that detection. So they don't punish for it.
And Twitch isn't proof. right? If someone's streaming,
They don't take any proof that's outside of their game itself.
they have to look at chat logs.
They have to look at chat logs.
Yeah, I mean, they will take stuff, but it has to be like, I imagine it has to be like escalated or something to like a supervisor or really high up to go and look at the proof, because it's so rare that it's actually acted on. That's my conjecture. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
I've heard about them using stuff on streams before, but it's, once off.
Right.
One or two.
If there was a giant outcry from the community like against it, I feel like they may like do some action on someone that was streaming and doing something that was kind of nefarious or like doing something against the rules. But like, there's never been a giant outcry like against ACT at the levels that maybe it needs to, like for them to really go after people on streams. Like obviously there's a part of the community that hates ACT, but it's
very small and compared to the amount of people who love ACT.
Right. I think so.
And so they kind of have to make a judgment call here. They're like, look, this is not destroying our game. This is actually healthy for our game to have this ACT program out there. So because people can actually look at their DPS and that's what they want to do. But we don't want to implement that and say we support that. But they're getting more people in because they're competitively. So this is something that I want to talk about too and why we care, right? When we look at Ungarmax, you're fighting a boss, right? You're fighting something that's not real. It's you against this other team that's not real. And the reason I'm saying something like this, because I had a conversation with my friend. I was playing Monster Hunter, all right? And if you're familiar with Monster Hunter, there was this the gun and ammo. I think it's slicing ammo, right? Yuki, maybe you could confirm that.
Yeah. The slicing ammo stuff.
Where you could just skip mechanics of the boss by just making him flinch a whole bunch of times. Just people shooting at it, right?
You skip the mechanics of your own weapon with that ammo type as well.
Yeah.
So like in that game, there's something called critical distance. You have to be at like this certain range of the monster to do the maximum amount of damage. With slicing ammo, you just ignore that. So you ignore literally everything, from what the monster can do to you to what you can do to the monster.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's pretty ridiculous. But when I was talking to my friend, I was like, man, this is kind of effed up, isn't it? He's like, well, why does it matter? You know, I'm not fighting somebody. If they want to, I don't enjoy the game doing that, but if someone wants to go out there and do it, it's not killing my game enjoyment because they're going out there and they're fighting this something that doesn't exist, right? They're playing a game. And if they want to go out there and do this and clear content and do whatever they want with that, it's not hurting him. And I thought that was a kind of an interesting perspective because if we related it to something like Ungarmax, that's the same deal. We're just fighting bosses. But when we're looking at the world of MMO, it's not really just PvE. It's like a competitive version of PvE. We're against other players. We're looking, hey, I killed this boss. This means something to me. But this other person kills this boss, and they use something to cheat with it, that devalues your achievement, right? And so to you and to the other people playing this MMO, we're kind of in this weird realm, especially with FF logs and looking at ACT numbers and everything else. We're at a competitive version of PvE. And so for us, we see it as horrible, completely bad. And I don't know, it just got me thinking a little bit about why. Go ahead.
There's also a subset of the population who doesn't have access to it. Like all PS4 players are just in, like, by definition, at a handicap in all this content because they don't have access to this powerful tool.
Right.
And
that's right. It's not equal distribution.
Yeah.
So like if you talk about that bug in Monster Hunter, like other people don't like it because it's not on their weapon. They're not. They feel like it's unfair because somebody else is far too powerful. Mm-hmm. So in this case, it's the same thing.
I know this is going to a bit of the extreme, but like on the PS4 thing, like PS4 players technically don't even have access to like voice communication like a PC player would without using something external. Like that's like there you can go to an extreme level there, like if you really want to, as far as third party goes.
PC has to use third-party programs for voice too.
True, so, but I guess if you looked at a player that was like just on a PS4, like and saying with the ACT thing, but the PC player has the access to that tool. So I feel like there's still gray area even there.
It's weird, yeah, because when you're starting to talk about this stuff, and there's no support for voice comms, and that comes into like other areas like PvP, when people go into solo queue and then they get in voice comm with each other. That's kind of cheating against the other people who don't have voice comm, but that's a whole nother deal. But when we get into is ACT okay to use, everyone just agrees it is okay. Even though there's lots of things with ACT that are, if we compared our same rationale and thoughts to Ungarmax, it's not okay. And so it's just such a weird situation because we have to define as a community what is okay, right? It's really defined by us. It's not defined by any set rule or restriction. I mean, the best thing you can really define it as is things that are game breaking. But then even that goes into a gray area when we talk about the example with Nisi. It's game breaking to do the standard strat of A4S.
Okay, so hold up. So there's a difference here between concepts.
Okay.
We need to clearly define what an exploit is.
Okay.
Because handling a mechanic in a different way that circumvents a way that a mechanic works normally is not necessarily an exploit. An exploit is deliberately circumventing game mechanics in a way that is not meant to be like it's not meant to happen in the game physically. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Like a tank disconnecting and having Twintania continue to attack nothing. Like that's very clearly not intended.
Right.
And it's like I'd laugh at somebody who would imply that, oh no, we think that is legitimate strategy. Like no, it's not. It's very obviously not. And that's when you hit an exploit. So something like Nisi and dying and sacrificing. So sacrificing to kill.
But that's sacrificing with latency.
Sacrificing yourself to kill one node was already intended, like as an emergency. If you needed to kill one node, you could have someone run into it and die. That's normal. And that was, if something else had been screwed up, or you dropped a Nisi and you had to sack 3 people to meet one color because you only had one color juggling at a time, and people just learning that there was, wait, we can extend this and sack more. I don't think that qualifies as an exploit.
I want to go back to the tank thing and that tank thing you said. It's very strange you say that because in Final Fantasy XI, logging out was considered a legitimate strategy on like you could log out, and the reason you did this was because it reset anonymity. So you'd have a black mage that would created so much anonymity, and it's just like I'll log out. And SE actually was okay with this and allowed this, and it's. I know in this case it's a little different. It's just funny that's all.
I remember that.
So what happens if like SE is actually okay with these exploits? Because so here's the thing. I do know somebody who did get banned for Ungarmax. Like he got the first wave of the ban, full 9 days. Now what happened was he actually reported Ungarmax to the GMs, and this isn't. People think he's the guy who like reported it initially, but he's not. But he did report Ungarmax to the GMs, and the GMs told him, "We can't tell you if this is an exploit or not."
Ridiculous.
And they're like, "If you use it, then it is up to you. That's it. No, don't use this. No,
or something.
No,
right?
no abuse, nothing. That's what the GMs say. All right." And then you look further, and then it's like. You look at ACT, nobody has problems with it. It's like they're not going to ban you for it. And then let's look at the speed hacking part. How long did it take for that black mage to get banned?
A couple of years.
What it took. He didn't get banned during Gordius. He just got blacklisted off FF logs. What it took was the entire PvP community reporting him. So it took a whole community to get him off the game. And that's basically how SE handles bans. It is just they don't. I feel like they don't do anything, to be honest.
Well,
they can't tell you if these.
So
like
to talk about that whole situation too, I think it's vital to mention. We're talking to GMs. And I don't want to like criticize GMs, right? I don't want to say GMs suck, they're stupid, they're bad, or anything like that. But it's like criticizing, for me, at the moment, a call center. Like if you call in and you're like, my internet's down, and I'm criticizing that because it doesn't seem like our GMs have any kind of ability to do what we think they should be able to do.
Well, here's the thing. I guess I want to go back to the reporting, or kind of on the reporting thing. You can report that to the GM through game. However, like, you know how there's also like a forum post like you can put online or on their website. Well, what happens when you can't report that anymore because you just got banned? You got banned from the official forums. Like, say that player found an exploit and they wanted to report to the official forums that there's a bug report. Those GMs, the GMs on the forums, banned that player, which I believe they're using the same GMs for both the forums and in game, from my understanding. But
I'm not sure.
Like,
I'm
not
like, sure.
Why are you preventing a player from reporting this exploit potentially? Because I know some players that knew of this exploit and just couldn't report it to the forums. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, that I understand preventing someone from communicating like in their general forums, but SE has a really bad policy on the forums, in my opinion, because of that exact reason.
They have a bad policy in game too. They can't tell you like how they'll solve your problem. They can't tell you when they'll solve your problem. Like and like I have this issue in game right now, and I've talked to 3 GMs over the past month, and they all agree that this person is like harassing me, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. No solution. Nothing has happened like for the past month, and it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if it's a lack of power or anything like that. I don't know anything because their privacy policy won't let me know anything about it.
Mm-hmm. So I think we can kind of agree. I don't know. Maybe Kyo might say something different on this. But I will say that I believe, I'm kind of with you guys, that there's issues with the GM support team. There's issues with the official forums. 100% the official forums. There's issues with the moderation there. Something's going on, and that needs to be fixed. And it's been happening for the entirety of the game, almost. Every once in a while, you get like you see a Reddit post or something like, here's my interaction with this GM. How interesting was this? And all right, that's kind of neat, but most of the time it's very mediocre responses, very mediocre everything. And I feel like if I had to jump this back to PvP, man, I cannot tell you how bad the moderation is for that. All right? There's so many things that I think that they could improve upon, that they need to improve upon in that role. And I will agree with that 100%. But Kyo, you may have something different than what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, GMs clearly have a certain degree of authority for punishment, obviously, because they can very, very quickly respond to things like harassment or like cursing. Like, I mean, I've never seen GMs react faster than when one of my old FC mates walked out onto our lawn and said a very awful word in Say Chat to a group of people that were RPing outside. They reacted very fast to that. So,
well, that's a clear-cut answer for them. They're like, I have a rule, I have a policy, I have something, I can enact this.
Exactly.
Easy.
But when it comes to anything that is even remotely a gray area, it seems to me like they're basically a customer service representative in the sense that they ultimately have to go through the chain of command to get anything done. And so they probably have to talk to somebody who has to talk to somebody who has to go back, talk to someone in Japan or something like that, and then cross a language barrier to get any kind of decision made or action done on something that is questionable, like a speed hack, where it's difficult to verify that something is happening. Probably a lot of policies in place to prevent somebody from accidentally getting banned or getting treated, getting a suspension without having actually done anything wrong, right? They want to prevent that kind of abuse.
Well, innocent until proven guilty, but they don't have a really good guilty verification system, I guess, if that...
Yeah. In any case, that sort of chain would explain the things I've seen over the years in terms of what's been acted on fast and slow, and what honestly sometimes takes an entire PR nightmare for them to get a reaction to on like Reddit or something with 1,000 upvotes or something. It's like, oh, we should actually do something about that.
It reminds me of that situation. Sorry, Kyo, so you can go ahead.
Oh no, it's just like, ultimately, sadly, the only way to bypass that chain of command seems to be to make it a problem, which is unfortunate because the report. But they've also claimed that the report feature has not been used properly, and who really knows who's sending it.
I will take some of that again. God, I hate bringing us back to PvP, but I've had so many experiences with this. When we talk about the I asked before. I was like, hey, people claim they report people doing these things, and there should be something that's done. And the response I got back from that was, oh, people over-exaggerate issues because people's emotions get very high in PvP. And so that's why you don't see a lot of answers to these solutions. And it kind of made me feel, I don't know what the right word is to it. God, I treated it like a child almost, which was kind of upsetting. But when we're talking about the whole situation where it went to Reddit, just to go back to that, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's someone who posted, this happens a lot. People can't subscribe anymore. Issues happen with payments and the whole payment system, the whole Krista system, the whole thing that they do, and they just can't play the game. And this guy literally had to post something on Reddit, get tons of traction on it for something to happen so he could play the game again. And that was a little bit screwed up. Do you guys remember that, or am I?
I remember it.
Yeah. And so clearly there is something wrong here. And if Square Enix can't understand that, that's a problem too. And so that's one of the biggest downfalls I think I have right now with Final Fantasy XIV is just how their moderation is handled. And something needs to change.
This isn't like, since I played Final Fantasy 11 and they've had issues like this in Final Fantasy 11, this isn't like something new for Square Enix. Like they've always had a problem with this, and it's basically I want to bring up one topic that I was like thinking about when I was coming on the show, but it's I don't know if any of you played Final Fantasy 11, but there was something called salvage in it where basically players were capable of duping.
Yeah,
capable of duping items in the game, and this went on for I think 2 years almost. It was either a year and a half, 2 years, and never once, even among I imagine it had to have been reported over this time. And why did it take Square Enix this long? Well, are you not seeing that your one instance is creating more objects than it really should have? Like, come on. Like it's like and then because what ended up happening was I think people had made so many complaints about this raid test or this raid called salvage. It was basically not dropping anything. It drove players to like do this for hours on end. Like you'd go, I want to say when me and Nari did it, we'd go like almost 50 NM kills and never seeing a drop from this one item, and it drove people to use this exploit. And why did it take them though a year and a half to do this when people were reporting it apparently way back then? It's absolutely ridiculous at the response of exploits.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I have some things to say.
Sure.
One completely different team. So a team of people. So
well,
I mean,
Square Enix still hires them and is responsible for their teams, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
but it's one of those things where it's difficult to compare the response of Square Enix to cheating and salvage to cheating now because it's completely different people involved in the process. But you're right, and I made the comparison myself to the salvage dupe exploit when we discovered Ungarmax, because it was under the context that this has been happening for like half a year now. The people have been doing this. You know, the first report was 4 months ago in some and the new raid, the Stormblood raid, the 24-man. Rabanaster. That was the Reddit post from then a long time ago that someone just assumed was like a cheat engine or something. That's how they got to use it. So I made that comparison. Like if somebody's been doing this for 4 months under the radar in content, just even casually, like it's in the same category as the salvage dupes, where you're doing this, you're willfully exploiting a system that you're not supposed to be able to do. And I had imagined they reported it like once, and then they just kept going at it again. And that's like ideal. I think that's thinking highly of them. I think they reported it once, maybe twice, and then stopped and just kept using it. And it's like, you deserve the ban.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you obviously realize something's wrong here. You know it's wrong. The community backs you on saying it's wrong. To continue using it just because you can is kind of you're getting into that sticky area. You're getting into that where you're probably going to get banned. You kind of shot yourself in the foot.
It's the slippery slope argument that I hear. I've been playing MMOs for over a decade now, and I hear it all the time. The slippery slope argument is just like they haven't punished it yet, so it's probably okay. You know, they haven't punished it for the last year, so it's okay to do this. And I go, no, it's not. If it's not okay, not okay.
So I'm going to bring it back. We're going to go back into player mentality on this. We talked a lot about Square Enix and kind of how they handle the situation. But when we were comparing that, that's how ACT developed. That's how the normalization, I guess, of ACT came about. No one's getting banned for it. No one's being, nothing bad's happening. There's nothing that's like, it's okay. It's kind of, unspokenly okay to use ACT. And so no one's getting banned. So we should be able to do it. But I can tell you right now, in Ultimate, without ACT triggers, you're kind of having a hard time, unless if you have someone who's really good at figuring out what Nail's saying, right?
So they've even said that the fact that players became so reliant on that so globally, they said that represents a design. They've publicly come out and said this probably was a design problem for us. Like, we shouldn't have done that. We were trying to we were trying to honor the 1.0 system, I believe, where they had Nail saying the lines as well. So they were trying to bring that back, and it was a matter of they realized they shouldn't have done that. They should have had some other indicator of what was going to happen. So players didn't have to try to translate. And there's also the bad English translation, right? Where in Japanese, it was apparently a lot easier to read from her lines and directly correlate it to abilities, where ours, they were sometimes flipped back and forth. They used different words, not the same word every time. And it was difficult to quickly do the mental math to figure out what you needed to do. So they took that and made it say, okay, this is design error. Probably we're going to leave it alone. But they haven't said they're going to leave it alone, but probably.
I think that's where also the Nisi thing kind of falls back into, as it's somewhat design error, because they're not considering the latency of their own game and what players can do with it. And that's why they kind of let that go. And that same thing goes for a lot of the other, I'd say Alexander exploits kind of happened, and most were commonly used.
Right. Well, I mean, the other Alexander one was the water, I think, in A8. Is that right? The water debuff that didn't kill everybody when it exploded. Yeah, so you could just sack someone as opposed to that has that. But then the conflict comes in is then in A6, if you sack someone there, it doesn't do the same thing. It actually wipes you. So is that a misstep on their part, or did they just change the mechanic for that fight to do? Yeah, you can't really.
Right. Who knows, because they don't communicate that.
Yeah.
I mean, they also conveniently gave you a way to kill yourself right there on this point.
Right.
Fine over there. I could just go die. So, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, for those two instances specifically, A4S and A8S, without this kind of strategy, you wouldn't see a huge amount of people clearing those two specific grades. And there were already not a lot of people who cleared A4S and A8S at that time. So what happens if you fix that bug and then suddenly nobody can clear this content anymore? Like, that doesn't look good, right?
So, I mean, basically what we're talking about is that Square Enix will see something like this, and then they have to make a choice. They have to say, hey, look, people are using, this is not how we wanted it to happen, but this kind of solves this other problem for us.
I mean, this has an older precedent than just those examples, too. This goes all the way back to T2 and Rage. T2 and Rage is another unintended strat that people ended up using constantly, and it was a bottleneck for people when they first got there. They couldn't do rot. They just couldn't do rot. Pubs couldn't. So they found this solution that completely circumvents all the mechanics in that fight, like literally everything. I just sit there and cure.
I completely forgot about that, because my raid group actually did it the right way for so long, and we did it. I think I only in Pugs I ever did that. So it's in my head I completely forgot about that one.
Yeah.
But it's even Square came out and said on the spot, we're not going to change this. We know it's not intended the way they did it, but we're going to let the community have their strategy. And I think partially it was because they wanted more people to clear coil. I really think that's the bottom line, is this fight. The reason this thing gave birth to this strategy in the first place was because people were struggling to clear only T2 because of rot. So they let it happen. And I think that's similar to the A4 and A8 solutions as well. It's just let it happen. More people clearing is fine.
Yeah.
But in some cases, they did fix them as well. Some cases, things that were unintentional were fixed about bugged encounters. I think T5 is a good example, where some things that were intent, especially with conflagration, were fixed so that I don't actually remember exactly what, but I remember something was fixed with the logout bug was definitely fixed, where the tanks would disconnect and the boss would, they could have let that happen too. The boss would sit there doing nothing while the tank was disconnected, and they fixed that.
Mm-hmm.
More people cleared.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird things where we have to just, I guess, we have to just let Square Enix do what Square Enix does. They have to make these calls on their own end, and it seems conflicting, which is where the players' minds will get confused, right? That's why I call this a conundrum, because we're dealing with a situation, and we deal with this a lot, that seems a little bit fishy, seems a little bit, could be right or wrong, and we have to wait for Square Enix to tell us. What are we doing that's right or wrong? Or we have to say it as a community and all kind of agree on that, and then Square Enix understands, oh, okay, well, this kind of makes sense, we're going to go with it. You can see how this can get confusing for people. And why they're like, oh, yeah, whatever, screw it. I'm just going to use Ungarmax. They'll fix it, but they're not going to ban me. They didn't ban me for doing this other shit, so why would I get banned for this? And so people have so many different ways of looking at the situation to where I feel like we shouldn't completely villainize people just for talking about it or just for saying, or have their group tried it once or twice. I mean, you can obviously tell when people are going out there and they want to abuse the system to get stuff that they shouldn't be getting at that ease. But I don't know. It seems this is where it gets into the, well, is this right or wrong? All right? And does that make sense? That's kind of what I was trying to say.
I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah, I said that in a little bit of a confusing way, but basically, this is where all the gray comes in. And so it was weird to me when everybody said, hey, look, no, exploits are wrong. It doesn't really play out like that.
I just see it as there's two different categories here, and it's not in the category of an exploit when you're talking about something that's very fight specific. When you're talking about this specific fight, we do this specific thing, it should not be punishable unless it's like so clearly unintended that, and I like the Twintania literally not taking an action for the rest of the fight. Like it's clearly that you weren't supposed to skip 50% of the fight. It's just that's an exception. But
Spinning
something like
around the boss, things like that.
Something like Ungarmax, is something that's not fight specific. You could take that into any content and do it, and it gives this huge buff. And it's just I can't see the argument that that this is okay, and that anyone would think it was okay.
I on the Twintania stuff, there was also another bug where like the tank could walk into conflagration, and I know you said the logout one, but the tank could walk into conflagration and Twintania would still be attacking the tank, and the tank would receive no damage. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Yeah, it still exists. You can still do it.
You can still do that. I don't know because I haven't been in there so long, but
that's the
that doesn't seem like that should be intended either to me. So it's still going to me. That still goes back to gray area. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's on a time limit, right? Because you have to deal with the conflag or it explodes and kills people.
Right.
So ultimately, that's a very temporary strat. It stops you from like 3 to 4 autos plus a death sentence, maybe, at the cost of your tank's DPS and possible weirdness with aggro, depending on how you're tanking it. Tank's not generating aggro anymore. Like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, Keo, you're saying basically it's not really justifiable just because it's so clear, right? You look at it and you're like, yeah, this is something you shouldn't be able to do. 100% you're cheating 100% of the content, the PvE content. You can just cheat through it. And so it's like a global thing.
Yeah. I agree that there's gray area only in like what we should and shouldn't do. But ultimately, when there is a gray area, it's up to Square to decide.
Right.
But there are things that go beyond the gray area. And like I said, that's the category of things where you're skipping half of a fight. Or you're giving yourself a 50% damage boost for 30 seconds from a skill that's not accessible in the content under normal means.
Right.
Like, we're not in the category of gray area anymore at that point.
Yeah.
So this
and the gray areas are for Square to decide. Like someone brought up in chat, I love the example. The Titan tanking in Ramu was a really good like, is this okay?
The retirement of all tanks, yeah.
Yeah. It's like this strategy is kind of cool. It's really creative. It works. It's interesting that you can completely nullify a certain mechanic, like the Titan never had to pick up orbs. So It's greatly simplified. And Square just said, yeah, it's a bit much. And they took it out. And good, no one got punished for that. Obviously, it was just a really creative use of mechanics that qualifies under the gray area. Like, is this okay or is it not? But it's a gray area. I don't think it should be banned. Like, I think most people would say don't ban for gray area because, I mean, the players don't even know.
Right.
Like, is this or not? So why would you ban that?
Yeah, I remember that. That was like one of my most frustrating days of playing tank. Is this new content came out, and I was like, all right, I'm going to tank it. Man, this is going to be fun. I'm going to figure it out. And then basically there was not a single group that wanted me in their group. That made me so mad. But I mean, also when you get into the situation recently, you know, I was pugging 05S, and half the groups were warrior only. Because they wanted to do this train skip. They didn't,
Yeah.
They didn't care about, you know, wouldn't do Paladin Dark Knight. Because they needed a warrior to be in the group so they could skip half the mechanics of the fight, which definitely I don't think was intended, right? So it kind of falls in that situation as well. Where
this sounds funny to me because when I do O5S pugs, half the group runs into the ghost anyway. So.
They don't even, yeah.
they don't even, like, you tell them that you're gonna do the whole O5S ghost cheese thing, and then they run into it anyway. I'm like,
doesn't even work. Yeah.
Why lock it to warrior? You know?
But I mean, that's easy to fix, right? They could simply just make it that you have to cleanse your own throttle by going in. It's not a group-wide throttle when one person kills their ghost. That would be easy fix, and then that exploit or quote unquote exploit wouldn't exist anymore.
So, and then we have to ask ourselves, why is this not something that's done? All right, why is Square Enix even holding off on it?
I mean, you got ninjas doing it now, right? If Ninja can now do the skip if they have enough gear instead of the warrior. So
we've had a summoner go in and do it. So
yeah,
red mages do it too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so weird because I hate that because it limits me to a fight. This is something that hurts part of the community, like the diehard paladins, the ones who play paladin and A12S. You know, they're running into this issue where they can't do this content. And that sucked, by the way. That was just fight design poorly horrible for A12S, man. But that's okay.
I mean, that's been happening throughout the years, though. People being excluded from content's not new. You have a conversation with some samurais, ask them how they get excluded from content, because they do.
This is a normal thing in any game, to be honest, with PvE and classes and builds and whatnot. Like, this is normal in every single game. You're like, people always try to find what's good, what's efficient, emulate that. It's never gonna go away, no matter how much you want.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes down to like something like the O5S strat, where you basically make it to where just if you kill something fast enough, you break the mechanic. That seems a little bit off to me, because that's not just like meta strategy or anything. That's more just like unintentional skips.
A11S.
A11S?
Yeah. Pushing too fast, breaking mechanics. Well, not breaking mechanics, but...
I loved A11S.
Fucking skips, man. Oh no, we skipped something new.
My group never skipped stuff, so that's why I loved it so much, because I hear people complaining about it. I'm like, we're just a normal group. You know, this is normal stuff. We're okay doing all the mechanics.
The very first time the ads phase was completely skipped, everybody was just like, what happened?
Yeah. Because you're just not prepared for it.
It's like, this is supposed to be ready. When you skip an entire phase is when you should start getting worried that you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Like when you skip an entire important critical phase of a fight. Like that ad phase is like seems mandatory. So what is going on?
So I do want to bring up another just common theme that seems to happen a lot with that the community has decided this is not right. You shouldn't do it. Right? This is something that you can't, we don't want it. People who do it are abusing the system and they're cheating. But it's similar in the way that ACT works as a third-party program. I assume, I don't really know even how to do it, but when we get into the part of like Zoom hacking, right? I didn't even know what Zoom hacking was at first. When people kept saying it to me, I'm like, is that where they just zoom around? They run around the arena a lot or something? But that's just where you change your screen. right? You make it to where you can see a lot more. And people do it on Twitch, people do it in various other places, but we've overall decided this is not okay. Right?
Yeah.
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 You should see more, you should.
Yeah. And
Dude,
so
there's this, like, I think some Asian, I think it's Korean streamer that was going on there during UCOB prog, and it's just he would just max zoom a little tiny dot on the screen, and whole faces on there, and I'm just like, bah. It was weird.
yeah, and so that's kind of weird because we consider that a mechanic of the game. What we can see in our field of view, right?
It's one of the actual challenges. It's like there's a skill to rotating your camera and looking around the room for a mechanic. Like the dive bombs is an example where you have to spin your camera. If you can zoom out and see all the dive bombs at once, that trivializes the mechanic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we've decided. But nothing's been... Well, I don't know if there's anything they can do. I think that's just something that breaks the game, right? That's the part where Square Enix, I don't know if there's any way that... They might be able to do it. Maybe they can go in their files. They could change something.
No, I mean,
No, it's all client side.
Without some kind of spyware program, you're not going to detect zoom hack. I feel like, because I mean that's obviously a client thing. It's only what they're seeing. That data is already there for them, so there's no way that they can detect it, which is unfortunate. Which means it probably won't be punished unless they're dumb enough to stream with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of weird because now we're getting into part of like world first, right? That's a pretty a pretty big community of people who go very hardcore with content, who could easily have people who do that stuff. But it delegitimizes something that we've been like building up for years.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's just something we, as a community, have to try to, keep the integrity alive as much as possible in the competition because, things can just start going bad really fast when you start saying, well, they can't detect this, so it's okay, I'll do it,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the integrity goes down the hill real fast.
Yeah.
You just have to lose and whatever.
When talking about World First, and I know this isn't directly like dealing with the World First raiders themselves, but how would people feel about like, because I know there's a lot of crafters that probably use like scripts and stuff to like macro craft very quickly, like using their keyboard, or maybe like there's other tools out there that can do that kind of stuff. Like I have to imagine that out of the World First race, like I know crafters are hired, so how do Kyo, how do you feel about that as how do you feel about that you guys could be hiring crafters that do that? I don't know how about your guys' situation exactly, but do you feel like that dequalifies people that do a world race because you're hiring someone to get you mats or like make something for you that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you, and like the easy answer to that is, well, first of all, we have no way of knowing.
Right.
We can ask them, but they're probably not going to be serious about it. They're probably just going to be like, why do you want to know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they are doing it, they'll be, dodgy, and if they aren't doing it, they'll just say no. But in any case, day one crafting, I would sincerely doubt that anybody's using any kind of automation day one anyway, because things change, rotations change, difficulties of crafts change, there's new recipes, people spend a lot of active time communicating with each other. They may be macro crafting, but they're at their computer. There's no way that they're people day one. So in the actual race itself, I don't see how it would factor in, but in stuff leading up to it, sure.
Yeah, I was just curious, to be honest.
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
I mean, all that matters to us, at least as World First Raiders, is that day, right? The day of when we're progging, that's where we want all the integrity intact with the entire race process. So
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I guess it gets really weird because what if someone uses a macro to try to get through a certain fight where you had to constantly click to go into it in order to get access to the fight? For example, Raban. When we're dealing with that at the very beginning of the expansion, someone sets up a macro to go through the cutscene.
That happened temporarily at the start of Sigmascape. I think isn't that the reason why you guys got through, Kyo? Was you got through because just out of luck of getting through the Ralban?
We had our own manual macros. We were sitting there pushing buttons on our mouse.
Yeah.
Just like, please. But no, I didn't get through. I was blocked around Or no, you're talking about Sigma.
Sigma, yes.
Sigma was different. That was Sid, right?
Oh yeah.
We just
I was
got
just
in.
relating the two.
Yeah, we got in fast. Just try harding. One of us actually almost didn't get through. We had 7 through, and then one person was a little behind, and we were worried. We were hearing people getting stuck, but he luckily got through. So
Yeah.
just
Yuki,
wanting to log on that bad and spamming really hard.
Yuki, do you have any thoughts on it? I haven't heard from you in a while. I figured
Not really.
Okay.
This is all I can say is I've heard about that whole Sigma situation. That was pretty interesting.
It was like
and I think that's why they took the everything down for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
Because people in Japan were actually not getting through at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I wasn't getting through.
Right.
Most people who didn't log in immediately couldn't get through.
Right. And apparently the problem was worse in Japan.
Mm.
Like that's what I've heard at the very least.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean it gets into this whole weird situation because you could build that into the really bad stuff where people are using macros and are using programs to bot characters to go level up characters, right? And that's horrible. I hate that. If you level up, you better buy a jump potion. Or you better sit there and grind out fates in North Danaland for 2 days. Right?
Can we talk about bots for a moment? Actually, I've recently found out how easy it was to get a bot program for this game. It is absurdly easy, first of all. Second of all, you see all these people in the game who bought, and they sit there forever. Like you've seen the same guy carrying the same thing for like 3 months in a row. You log in today, he's still there. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens to them. Like almost everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like has bought it, and I don't know.
Not
I
everyone.
don't know
I haven't. Just to let you know, Yuki.
You haven't.
Okay. Not everyone.
It's like I can see like there's just so many people that I've known that have bought it, and it's like nobody gets punishment for it.
I mean, is this something that Square Enix can detect? I mean, is it something like you're looking at the behavior players are doing, and it seems super common. It seems 100% that humans not controlling this. Where does Square Enix, where do they come in and say, hey, we need to ban this person for botting?
I mean, you see the guy sit there for 3 months and hasn't changed his pattern at all. I feel like that's spotting. I feel like it's pretty obvious. Or you see a guy just constantly moving, never logging off for inhumane amount of times. Like that, I feel like that's pretty easy to detect. At the same time, so I remember people talking about this and why this whole botting situation exists, and why Square Enix doesn't do anything about it. They're, first of all, paying customers. Pretty simple logic to understand. You don't want to ban. These guys are still paying you money every single month. You don't want to just outright get rid of them. And second of all, MMO economies. A lot of MMO economies are sustained through botting. Like a lot of people don't want to do these mundane gathering for a lot of materials that you can't get without just sitting there and hitting that level 10 node all the time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there is a situation where people bought, Square Enix doesn't do anything about it. There's reasons for it, but are they do you guys think it's valid reasons?
Honestly, I don't approve. I hate it. I think it's horrible. That's just me, and in my heart, maybe I'm a horrible person for saying that, but I think that when we come down to it, I don't care if it helps the community. I don't care if it does anything else. It's definitely something that breaks the community for the people who do dedicate, which I can't do it. I can't craft. I can't gather. I tried to level up gatherers, and I wanted to shoot myself in the head. I'm going to be honest. I can't do that because it's just going and clicking on this tree, going to the next tree and clicking on it, going to the next tree and clicking on it, and it just drives me insane. And there's people who go and put the dedication into it. They come up there. They should get tons of value from that. They should get tons of payout for doing that. And instead, they have all these other people who go out and do this stuff, and it diminishes their value. And it kind of makes me a little bit upset, but then again, you're right. Square Enix has to look at this as a business model. right?
I think it's mostly just an issue of manpower. The struggle against bots has historically been very difficult in MMOs, not just this one, but the ones before, where it's going to cost them a lot of money for what basically isn't very much payout to stop the botters.
Mm-hmm.
They have to hire these people to handle it. They have to add more power maybe to the GMs to be able to do things about it. It's going to occupy more of their time, which will delay reports to other stuff. They need to staff more.
Mhm.
All this stuff is just from a business model. It doesn't make sense for them to do it. And I mean, I think that's unfortunate. I mean, I wish I watched the struggle in Final Fantasy 11. You know, there was like this endless battle against fish botters. It was really fun to watch because at certain points they would just all be wiped out. Like Square would just purge all the fish bots, and they'd come back. You know, slowly over the several weeks, they'd come back with some new algorithm that made it difficult to detect what they were doing. And, you know, Square then added in goblin bounty hunters, these mobs that would literally run around the fishing areas and murder you if you were sitting. It was great. It was wonderful entertainment. But at the same time, I think back on how much effort that took probably from them to code those things and to take the data and to find out, make sure they didn't get, you know, innocent parties banned. There are people who do legitimately like sitting at the fishing hole and fishing for 7 hours out of a day while they watch a movie by the monitor. They just like doing that. And you don't want to hit those people. Those are your loyal customers. So you have to put the effort in.
I think even one of the bigger issues with botting though in Final Fantasy 11 was like H&Ms and stuff like that though. Like that they just let that go too. Like if people even claim stuff before it was even visible and then they not even do anything with that. I don't know if that's a latency thing, but I don't know. That's still one of those areas even in Final Fantasy 11 that they were like gray about. And obviously you say botting's bad, but that did happen. And they never really did much about it.
It was awful, dude.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything that involved a claim for that reason in that game because it would just spawn claimed. It's like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Final Fantasy 11, but that sounds absolutely horrible. I mean, I guess I don't know if you could do this. I mean, I know there's some tricky stuff that bots do here, where they get like groups of 4 people with random names and everything, and they disappear and teleport all over the map and do crazy shit and do dungeons together to level them up. And it's disheartening, but yeah, you're talking about manpower with Square Enix, and if we were going to even compare Square Enix to the Final Fantasy 14 team to another MMO team like Blizzard, it's not even comparable, is it? It's like Square Enix has like a drop of water, and Blizzard's like an ocean. It's just they have such a big team that's focused just on the MMO, where Square Enix is focused on so many other things, and Final Fantasy 14 is just a game that they have. That has actually been supporting their company a little bit, but
I mean the thing is Final Fantasy 14 like apparently is what made them get out of like their slump of financial crisis or whatever was happening. So I don't see why you wouldn't want to dedicate more to that, because that's a very precious asset that you have. Like why is that not cared for a little bit more about in that? But I mean,
well, how much is the bots costing them?
Right. Or does that just not financially benefit them to go after that kind of stuff? But like, I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, Square Enix does work as a company, and it needs to be profitable, and it needs to support, the rest of their, it shouldn't have to support the rest of their company, right? Their other games, Final Fantasy 15 should support itself and give you a payback on it, all these other things. And so it's kind of strange that these risks and ventures that they make maybe in other games, I don't know what the profits are on, what they do in every other game that they have, but this shouldn't be their solid. I think as an MMO right now, if you want to have a popular MMO, you need to take risk, and they're in a situation to where they can take risk if they had other things holding them up and crutching them up, right?
See, I also think that they underestimate the effect of a little bit of scare tactic in getting people to stop botting. Botting is only so widespread now because it is a very well-known understanding of the whole community that they will not punish you, or they will only punish you if you're basically stupid with how you bot, or you bot and you're just like, I don't know, fate botting for like 48 hours straight. I did hear about a guy that did that not that long ago and got a ban for it. And it's just some you just have to be a little bit less obvious about it, apparently. And you're
now,
fine.
was that ban a permaban?
No, it was temp ban. Of course, there's all temp bans.
Yeah, but everything is temp ban.
But that's
so
the thing,
where's
though.
the danger?
Temp ban Temp
Yeah.
bans will scare off a lot of other players who are just trying it out. You know, they're like, a lot of people will ask the question, is this bannable? Can I get in trouble? And most botters these days are just going to answer with you, no, nothing has ever happened to me. But I, keep an eye on my bot once in a while, and I get out and do this and that, and I'm okay. And it's just, that's not how it should be. It should be like, well, you have to take all these precautions, and this guy got a this ban, and this guy got a that ban. But for the most part, you can get away with it. Like, if you get a that, you'll dramatically reduce the amount of people that are botting, because most people don't want to take the risk.
You're right. I would agree that those temp bans do work, and which probably helped encourage people for the next bug that comes out, an exploit that's super obvious, they're not going to be doing it. For example, a lot of responses I got about Ungarmax and people who didn't use it are people who played Final Fantasy 11, and it was a salvage thing. And they were like, I had a bad experience where I got banned, right? And fuck it, I'm not going to touch this because I know I'll probably get banned for it.
I mean, they already have like a 3-strike rule anyway for bans. Like, your first ban is like, what, a day? And the second ban is like 2 or 3, I don't actually know, 2 or 3 days. And then, like, I think your third ban is a review for termination and 9-day ban. And then I think fourth continues the third. It's like a 9-day and then review for a termination. But it's like, you get that first ban and you're spooked. Like, nobody wants that first warning. That's like their safety net in case they, I don't know, if a friend says, hey man, try this, thing that I found, and they get in trouble for it. They have that safety net of, oh, I don't have any scratches on my record yet. That one first 1-day ban, you'll keep playing, but you're spooked now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it works. But it's not employed here in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah. And I think, like, what really comes into value for Square Enix when you're talking about, like, a business model, too, is you do want to keep integrity in your game, because that keeps people playing. That has value to it. And so you have to figure out the balance there. Where does, like, our game stand with integrity, and do people want to play this, and does this have value from you becoming an in-game crafter? Is there actually value in you working hard to do it? Versus, I mean, that's a little bit different situation, versus, like, clearing content, I guess. Where clearing content, that's bragging rights. That it turns into bragging. How fast did you clear this content? Were you able to clear this content? Do you have this gear now? Wow, you have this gear, you're powerful because you cleared this content. And when you start getting into things that kind of cheat you into that direction, it kills the integrity of the content, and then people will maybe stop playing. And that's what they have to avoid doing, is making people stop playing, because what you're doing doesn't have as much value to it. Right? Kyo looks like he's on the fence.
I definitely say that with the crafting botting stuff and, like, gathering botting stuff, that there's not really much integrity loss for the game itself. But if there was something that, like, there was an integrity, like, if you want to talk about integrity, someone figuring out a way to get a world first because they exploited something, then that's where the integrity thing needs to be more held up. I guess on Square Enix standpoint, because that's also news for them and that kind of stuff. Whereas I guess if the crafting was too rampant and gathering was too rampant, then maybe that becomes more of an issue. But I think it's so low key that it doesn't matter.
I think it matters a lot. I completely disagree.
Okay.
I mean, so I can tell you a little story time here. So back in 2014, I was leading an FC on Ferry, and somebody in my FC was bot crafting. I didn't know. So the way I found out is somebody came to me and said, look, all I play this game for is crafting. I love crafting. I'm currently trying to corner the market in culinarian by crafting all the food in this one category, or these couple of different categories. And somebody in your FC is literally crafting that food 24 hours a day, and they're ruining my market. I know it's a bot. I've come over and I've looked at him. I've taken video footage. You can see he's using these actions at these very specific intervals consistently for this whole time. And he did all this homework, and I thought he was a little crazy, but he was probably right. And I went and confronted the guy, and I was like, thought about it a little bit afterward. And this guy was really upset because he was putting all this effort into something that he really wanted to do, which was corner this culinarian market. He really wanted to be competitive. And if he had legitimate competitors, he was okay with that. But this guy was literally going to work, coming back and crashing his market, and going back to going to sleep without any effort involved. And that ruined that guy's playing experience. He got really upset about that.
I think I think I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I think for the most common player, that where I'm saying that has little effect on them. That I understand that in that situation with that player's experience, that's where I'm saying it's maybe viewed at Square Enix as less of a thing they need to tackle.
Because it's just the one or two people doing that. Versus...
You can't tell me that people don't go out to these nodes to gather for the first time. Like I go out to gather Duskborn Aether Sand at the node at the nodes that are in the sea, Ruby Sea, and I'll see these guys just going back and forth, and I'll just sit there and stare and go, "Huh, you're probably playing another game or doing something else.
Yeah.
You're getting all this work done that I'm doing. Why am I bothering with this? I bet these prices are going to tank to like 1K tomorrow because people are doing it." And they do. And it's like, I don't need to do this content anymore. Like, it's actually a waste of my time, even though I don't mind doing it.
I'd say, I wasn't meaning like it's not having an effect. I'd say it's actually for some people, I think they might look at it as that's convenient for them, that something's maybe crashed because of the fact that it's cheaper. Like especially with the Duskborn Aether Sands in that comparison. Like I realize that it's not necessarily a good thing for the players that are trying to actually go out there and do that content and make the money. I'm more saying a lot of players might look at it as it's more convenient for them that player is crashing the market and making that situation happen. That's more what I was getting at.
I feel you.
I can see that because I don't own a house right now, but I hope there's another housing crisis so I can get a cheap house, right? And so that plays into it, right? You're like, I'm okay with something bad happening in this situation because I want it to benefit me. But that kind of gets into that whole. Go ahead.
The only reason I bring that up is from my standpoint, like my primary way of making gil right now has always been selling content. So to me, like I would rather prices be low. I don't care. Like if I don't care if as a player, like that these things are cheap. Like that's just how I feel. I'm also mixed. I understand if a player wants to do that content and craft and make money off it, but for me, I have my gil isn't affected by that. It's more beneficial to me. So I play that from the other end. It's like it's irrelevant.
It's also a lot more beneficial to some of the full-time the players that have a full-time job. Like you're thinking, well, these guys, they come home, they don't have time to do anything except for to raid with their group in that one night or like that 2-3 nights a week, and then they can't really do other things in the game. Like what happens if I want to this is a bad example, but well, actually maybe it's a good example. What happens if I want to do like Eureka on my days that I don't have to raid? I don't want to craft or do any of that, but now I don't have enough money to afford getting these consumables for my mid-core casual raid group. Mm-hmm. So this is actually a pretty beneficial thing for most of the community, to be honest, to have these bots grind out these materials, keep prices low, stuff like that.
Okay. And then you're basically saying you only have time for PvE that doesn't produce income to you, right, to let you purchase things, and the prices would be so inflated. But then again, when we talk about economy, and we would have to have someone who's actually specialized in economy, if no one has money to buy these things, then the prices would go down already from just a few people doing it, because they would just max out to what people can afford and what the value really is.
I'd argue for the general player base, though, that crafting isn't where people make money in transactions between other people. They're mostly going to be getting their money from, like, a casual player is mostly going to get their money from, like, what they're getting from Gil, from duty roulettes and all that kind of stuff, or, like, their challenge log and all that. So those are the people that are just kind of casual players that get the most benefit out of this situation. Obviously, in the hardcore realm, if someone's wanting to be dedicated to crafting, that's going to fuck you over. Then that's the unfortunate side of this, as I see it.
Mm-hmm. So we could talk about this forever, I think, with bots and how they affect the crafting community and everything else. It's so crazy. There's so many of these things, right? The game offers all these parts of it that seem kind of fishy, things that we definitely declare are not right. things that we have experiences with. Some things people just don't care, and so they don't get traction until it hits Reddit, right? And then Ungarmax, people care because everybody does PvE. Everybody goes out, does dungeons. Everybody does raids. Everybody does everything. And when you introduce something that breaks that for them and their enjoyment for it, that gains traction and something actually happens. So is that kind of where we're looking at when Square Enix responds to something? They're not responding to something that isn't right or wrong. They're responding to something that is harmful overall and has a huge response to it.
I would say that would be correct. I don't really see Square Enix taking action for anything that's not that doesn't have a huge community outcry. Well, we talked about the bots earlier. We talked about the hacks earlier. But how many people actually like know that Zoom hacks exist, or how many people knew that Black Mage existed? How many people there are not a lot of people that know like these things exist. But Ungar Max just happened to get popular on Reddit. Everyone happened to see it. Then there was huge outcry, and that's why Square Enix actually did their heavy lifting. I bet that if Square Enix found out about Ungar Max before that Reddit post came out, they would just say, "Oh, bug fixed, nothing else. That's it. No bans, nothing." I guarantee that's what would have happened.
Yeah. That's kind of what I expected to happen, to be honest. I didn't expect anyone to get banned for it. Because I thought that maybe, it was a clear bug. It's something that was allowed in the game. But eventually, yeah, it did. And we could talk about the Pomanders, right? There's so many things in there that people have done and abused in the game, and they've had different reactions to it. And it's rough. But right now, I will say that the Ungar Max situation is one of the first clear-cut things that we're able to say, hey, this was wrong, people shouldn't have done it. And it's surprising how it had such a, I guess it's not surprising considering what it did, but it's interesting to see the reaction to it versus the other things that we've experienced in the game so far and how they've been treated. But do you guys want to answer a couple of questions here? I have a few questions here. They're not... Go ahead, Kyo.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to say, I've been meaning to say, I was trying to think of a place to say this the whole entire talk, but when I first heard about the Ungarmax thing, that was the very first thing I said to my FC, and anybody that was asking me about it was, do not use this, you will get banned. And everyone was like, oh, but they haven't banned for anything else. Why would they ban for this? It's clear. It's so easy to do. Come on, nobody's going to ban for it. It's just fun. I was like, no, you're going to get, don't touch. No touch. Don't Ungarmax around me. Don't do it. And somebody in my raid actually did, and I just jumped off immediately. I was just, bye.
I think that's funny because I think a lot of people have that reaction where only one person did it, and then everyone else was against them in the party, and they just jump off the side, and they're like, no, we're not gonna do it. Because you do run into, it's weird because when people start doing that, we were talking about the average player. Let's talk about the person who just plays Final Fantasy 14 and they're just playing with their friends, and their friends realize this thing happens, and they're like, I'm gonna try it out, this is fun, and they're playing with their friends. And what do you say in this group of 8 people who you don't communicate with anyone else? This is just all you play with, and someone used it, and you're like, hey man, no, stop it, that's not cool, let's not do that. And then they keep doing it, you eventually just kick them out because you're like, hey, you're not my friend anymore. I'd
just be like, look, if that gets used again, I'm either leaving or we're kicking that person. You pick. That's it.
And it's rough, though. I don't
want to be around that.
No, and that's for people who, I guess, are in a situation to where they played a game and the MMO is a huge thing for them. But what about the situation where you have 8 friends and that's all it is? Is you have your 8 friends. You don't have anyone else. Do you tell them, do you just stop playing the game? Because you're not interested in playing with other people. You just want to play with your friends. It's rough. No, 100%. Yeah, we could always say that this is fair, that they got punished. But for me, over the last 2 years, and I'm saying this because the last 2 years, I've only raided and played with my friends. I haven't really gone out and done a huge... I've done other things, but I haven't made effort to go and play with lots of groups. I didn't make a group that was like, hey, this group, if you're not performing well enough, we're not going to have you in there because we want to clear the content at this point. We weren't together because we were good players. We were together because we wanted to play the game together. And so it gets to where Ungarmax and people who use it, I'm not happy. Like, if someone in my group was starting to use it, I'm like, hey, we probably shouldn't do this because we'll probably get banned. I would end in that situation, but I feel like other people could be pressured into it. Maybe not using it, but being in a group that does use it.
So this is what I was thinking when somebody in my group used Ungarmax. I'm like, oh, I don't even have Ungarmax unlocked, so I'm probably safe. I personally am probably safe if this person in my group has decided to use it, but this person in my group is pretty likely to get banned and get removed from our group. Like, if they get a permanent ban. Like, then there's no way around that. And it's just like, well, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could equivalent this to, you know, like you're in high school or something. You're with some friends hanging out, and one person's like, oh, man, I got some weed in my bag. And then that guy goes and turns in that guy for having weed in his bag. All right? You're taught in school, this is horrible. You shouldn't have this. But what would you think? So I'm going to put you, this is a real world example. When I was in high school, they did this thing where they had these big drug detector, not drug detector, metal detector things that you would go through, and they would search your bags and everything as you're going through. They would just have random days where they would do that as like an initiative to get rid of like drugs or weapons or anything else and make people not want to bring it to school. Which is something Square Enix should probably do, right? Have just random days where we're just checking everybody today. We're going to make sure you guys are good. But anyways, I got to homeroom, which is that first period, and we're talking about it with friends, and I'm just joking about it with another friend. I was just like, hey, man, yeah, they got in my bag, they hit a needle, and then they got all loopy, and then they forgot about everything, and I was able just to go straight through. I never had any drugs ever on me, and that was funny enough. I was making straight A's. But in my fifth period, randomly, some cop comes in and drags me out of class and takes me to the principal office where they go through all of my stuff, check my socks, and make sure I have nothing on me because one of my friends wanted to turn me in for having drugs on me. How do you think that affected our relationship going forward?
Yeah, but
I didn't know it was him for years because they didn't tell me who it was. But eventually I found out. I was like, you are a motherfucker. And I mean, that makes me look weird, right? Because now I am like sitting all this. They're like, why is this kid being dragged out of school? What's he doing? What's wrong with this guy? Then, you know, you have this whole weird stigma that gets attached to you just because somebody wanted to, I guess, do the right thing. So that's why I'm relating a little bit to the whole Ungarmax situation, because it's just weird if you're just dealing with friends and everything else. That's my story. I hope you guys had fun and interesting.
Final Fantasy 14 equivalent of that basically be just actually listening to the reports of cheating and having them actually investigate a couple of people there once in a while and actually punish them and
actually do their job every once in a while.
I mean,
sounds exactly what's happening.
It does not ever happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how to add metal detectors to Final Fantasy 14. It would be nice if just every once in a while the GMs just started watching people raid. They're like, I'm just gonna shadow this raid group doing their content.
At the moment, I just have very little faith that even if the GMs were to do that, I don't know if they have enough power to do anything in the first place. I just don't have a lot of confidence in that.
I personally feel that it's only really that important in the world first race to keep integrity, but that's really the only place that I think it matters that much as far as a GM actually physically watching people. Like, if it's just not reported and they don't have somebody to catch it, obviously if we have an exploit, we don't want it happening, but I don't know. I feel like that's somewhat of a waste unless they can build something in the to watch it.
Do you think during World First, you got GMs or you got developers shadowing in on these people who are doing the last fight so quickly and just kind of watching them fight?
I think they're already doing that.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's just conjecture, but I get the feeling they've been sitting in ever since the T5 thing. They've been sitting in and watching. Because if you guys don't know, there was a kill of T5 very, very early, but people were, like, standing in the floor or something where Twintani couldn't hit them. Like they position hacked down, and that was discredited. And I feel like since then they've probably looked at people and progression in the world race.
Because I asked that question. I'm going to be very interested to see what they say. But do you think that they just have, like, people just sitting at the computer just watching their own little versions of, like, I guess, being in the background? Like, maybe if you hear, you know, when someone's, like, listening to your conversation, you can sometimes hear some clicks or something. Maybe there's some way to relate that to Final Fantasy 14. Where you could see, like, over in the distance, you see that shadowy GM figure just kind of, like, looking down on you as you're doing your content.
Well, I mean, they can be invisible, so you wouldn't see them. But
Yeah. Or just some kind of weird activity, like on an ACT, a battle log or something.
I just want them to materialize when we clear your world first and give us, like, the thumbs up emote, and then just do that for. Come on, it'd be so amazing.
You just tab targeting through ads or something, and all of a sudden you just have, like, fucking GM, like,
You hit them and you instantly die.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a few questions here. So this kind of came up as a question, basically saying that, you know, ACT they consider as being worse, more abused than Ungarmax. But I don't know if I agree with that at all. I don't know if I'm sure you guys wouldn't. But why is ACT not as bad as using Ungarmax?
So I have a strong opinion, but I'm going to actually agree with the commenter. I think ACT is worse than Ungarmax significantly.
Okay.
But I also think that ACT is so commonly accepted and used and required at this point that you're not getting rid of it. So ACT spawned out of the company's outcry for a parser. That's what they wanted it. And for better or for worse, custom triggers are extremely easy to access from just the base ACT program. You don't need to install anything else. You can go straight to the custom trigger screen. And you can start parsing lines and creating text outputs to your audio. It's very easy to do, and it's extremely powerful. So banning for just custom triggers would, one, be very difficult to enforce. It's completely client side. There's no way to tell. And two, it's so easy to access from a program that's already recommended in practically every stream you go to. You go to any Twitch stream, people are like, what's that overlay? Here's a link. This is how you install ACT. It's so easy and accessible.
I'll say when I stream, I don't have ACT.
Good on you, Matt. I think at this point, it's one of those things, like, I was against ACT for a long time when I first started because I thought this is just, it's on the fence. At the very least, I was against custom triggers. I thought they were cheating. But after a while, it was just like, man, everybody is using this, and I just can't get away from it. At this point, I'm just handicapping myself not using it. And I really want to avoid, and I said this with the Zoom hack thing when it came out, was I want to avoid that translation going to anything else, limited just to ACT. Because as soon as you start saying, man, everybody's using this hack and everybody's using this hack, it gets out of control. So it's just, you have to keep, the only way to keep that under control is to have Square have this open policy about, you know, we can't ever condone ACT, because if we have to always be able to ban you so that we can keep control of the abuse, I guess.
I mean, a good way that they could handle it is change how they handle how they present the numbers and information to you. They can change algorithms up, and they can add algorithms. They can put things in there to make it to where ACT will break until they have to fix it. And so that could battle it, but
it's an arms race where it's not worth the effort that they'd have to put in, because there's way more people out here working on parsing programs that would get it to work. And it's just like they're fighting a losing battle.
I think the only place where I think I can justify it is because of like sometimes when they have bad design choices, like the nail thing. That's the only reason I can justify triggers like existing. Like, and if they have something that's presented poorly, that's the only way I can justify it. That's all I can say.
Okay. Yuki?
To be honest, I don't think I actually started using triggers until the nail thing, actually. Then I realized how amazing they were, and then I started putting them everywhere, actually. Especially when Shinryu X came out. That made the whole dodging icicles thing a lot easier for me. But for the most part, I would agree. I don't think the ACT program, the base function where it tells you your DPS and all that, I don't think that's a very egregious thing.
Okay.
Is that the right word?
I have no clue.
Egregious.
Egregious.
Egregious. Okay, let's go with that.
Okay.
But I don't think I don't think the base function of ACT is a terrible thing. In fact, it really came out from necessity. I mean, once we started getting fights where DPS checks became necessary, just trying to figure out how much damage you needed to progress without this ACT program during raid, everything just becomes a lot less clear and a lot more difficult, and you don't know. You just don't have enough information.
And this is something they added in later, but they used to not have percentages in the game, so we'd have no idea what the actual percentage was. So that they kind of got rid of some of the need for ACT in certain situations, like as far as reaching percentage pushes. Like the best thing, like Living Liquid, when like the first DPS in Living Liquid is like design wise, like obviously that's like I personally feel Living Liquid is like one of the best fights in the game when it was relevant, but like but because that push existed and you needed to decipher that what was going on there, how the hell would you know like what you were supposed to do unless you started seeing some clues, and ACT helped with that.
Hey man, people back then taped little rulers to their monitor, a little piece of paper.
I guess you could do that.
People would do that. I remember people doing that and showing like pictures of their screen where they had it. It was great. I love like how inventive some people were. But
Sherlock Holmes, not Sherlock Holmes. What was it? MacGyver. MacGyver did that with like paper clips and rubber bands, and he would create like a gun with it or something. But then start doing that for instead. Why do we need ACT when we got tape and rulers? And we got notepads. We can just write down the numbers and just add it all up. We know how much damage we're doing. But yeah, no, when we're talking about it, it does seem weird. Like I think ACT is wonderful in what it adds to the game, as in a parser and information, giving us like some sort of like way to better ourselves, to clearly see, hey, I'm doing better. Where's performance, and being able to judge your performance. That adds to the game. It doesn't take away. But when you get into triggers, that I still don't like it. I hate it. I can't do a trigger ever. Just because if I do it, I feel like I get back to deadly boss mods, which I wanted to shoot myself in the head when that was a thing in WoW. Because WoW had to develop around that. That sucks, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still, I think it's still the case in this game that there's a lot like, how do I say this? So height. Let's talk about height, and A6 and Swindler and A8 is one of those things where people made ACT triggers for it really fast. Like right when they hit it, a lot of people were like, this is killing me, I'm making a trigger for it. I never made a trigger for it. I never really had an issue with it. I died to height maybe a couple times ever. But I still, whenever I hear that trigger and like someone's microphone going off, I'll just, you really need that?
I tend to agree on that one, because you just have to look, is it purple, it's down, and red's up. Like it's really quick.
Yeah, that was not a very difficult one from my experience. But I do know like my static at the time, they did have trouble with that, and they really they really had an issue with tunneling without the triggers. And
well, I mean,
you know, when you're wiping the group constantly on this one mechanic, and you can solve it by making a trigger to make things easier on yourself, like you're probably gonna do that, because you don't want to be the guy who's wasting the time of 7 other people, right? That's
and that's what it comes down to. Yeah,
it is a form of cheating. Like in a way, it is a form of cheating to get past, like to give yourself, it's awareness cheating,
which is what people would claim for Zoom hacking. right? You're giving yourself more awareness, and so triggers kind of relate in that same way. You're giving yourself awareness that should be there as someone who's dedicated at calling out. You're letting people do having to do this as a human being that has to pay attention to what they gave you the fight with. And what I like to do is compare it to PlayStation 4, and these guys will never get triggers. They'll never have that advantage. So you still need someone to call out things, but you just have someone calling out things for someone to call some. Like you have an ACT giving someone information so they can give you information. And that's what it usually turns into, anyways.
I still go back though, like if a design choice requires it because of SC's point, then it need
the only example is nail, man.
I think there probably is some other cases. I just need to remember what they were, but I want to say there were other situations besides that in the past. Like at least I can't really think of them right now, but there might have been other cases.
Just get good.
Personally.
Really get good. Like it is a skill. I mean, height in particular was one of those things to me that just made me angry because the whole arena is changing. The ground is glowing, it's shifting, and you're just like, you didn't notice? The entire arena is changing. Everything's lighting up. There's loud sound effects going off, and you're just like, I need a trigger. Okay.
Well, they also need a trigger for Mega Beam, right? So just so you see Mega Beam, and
I know the boss flips around.
Yeah, that one was more of a meme. That was like.
That's ridiculous.
That one, the trigger for that one was just being cute. To be honest.
Wait, like it didn't people say Ungarmax was? Oh, I was just trying to do like be cool and like it's a meme that I'm using Ungarmax or like that kind of stuff.
So they should be banned for Mega Beamo. Okay. Anyways. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's just ACT's developed as part of what we have to have in this community, and again. Ungarmax doesn't add anything positive to the community. It adds nothing. I can make the argument that ACT does add to the game. I just also takes away, but...
DBM has been a hotly debated topic for a long time in WoW and otherwise. And a lot of people are used to it or they've just begrudgingly accepted that it existed long before the Final Fantasy argument ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
So, people saying, yes, it's more powerful than things like Ungarmax, it's absolutely true. But at this point, it's something that people are starting to expect to exist because the precedent's already there. And so it's like you're going to have a difficulty winning the argument that people shouldn't use custom triggers. I mean, I like them, but I've come to the point where it's just like people are going to use them. They love their DBM. That's just how it is.
So,
Locally, day one prog, those things don't exist. ACT was broken in Sigmascape. We couldn't even use them.
That was a good thing.
Which was nice. It was wonderful. It was a breath of fresh air. I don't want to talk about custom triggers in prog.
Yeah.
Even a little bit. So
yeah.
So just a quick question. Now I've never played WoW, and everything I've heard about DBM is from like other people. So how I've heard how DBM works is it is basically a plugin that you get this API from Blizzard, and then it kind of DBM just reads that API, gets basically every information about the boss that you necessarily need, and then it just calls out every mechanic from you. For you. Is that like how DBM
I don't know
works?
if they give you all the information on it, but I know they give APIs out. I don't know if when the fight comes out, they give you all the rules and restrictions to add it into your plugin. Maybe they do. I don't really know.
I haven't played WoW since Cataclysm, like actively in rating, but at least at the time, it literally will tell you like timers, like scrolling across the screen when stuff's gonna happen. It'll have like it lights up your screen. It gives effects, like all this kind of stuff. Like there was even one time I think in Wrath that people started figuring out a way to make 3D displays of where to stand in the arena, and that was a pretty egregious, and that got banned out quick, thankfully. But
it's pretty bad. Like basically,
but I'm like that's like information that those are things that you can put in. But I mean more like, so if the boss comes out that day, you would already have information about, oh, this attack does this thing, this attack does that thing, like this is what this mechanic does, etc. Is that how DBM works?
That depends on how much is available on the test realm, because I know some test realms gets put into DBM early on,
I see.
from my understanding. So thankfully we don't have test realm.
I mean, that would be that's a whole conversation, test realms and
okay,
everything else. But yeah, they can pull that information, and basically day one, people doing the real content can already have a program that just does Simon Says for you. And it's annoying for me, but...
Yeah, but I mean, ACT custom triggers are a form of DBM. It's much lighter. It's much like DBM light.
Yeah.
But it serves the same purpose. Like I said, it's just been something that people have begrudgingly accepted the existence of for ages now. And there were people, from what I've heard, I didn't play WoW. From what I've heard, there were people since way back when arguing that DBM is cheating and you shouldn't use it and we should ban DBM in our raids. But I mean,
I was on that team because I hated it because it just took the fun out of it. Triggers take the fun out of the game for me too, and that's just a personal thing. If I let the group down, then I'm sorry. I'm just not fast enough, guys. I don't have the reaction time here. I apologize. And I just say fuck it. I'm not going to use triggers, but I'm a little snot. Sorry.
I don't like using triggers too, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there was that Reddit post for Sigmascape triggers that came up a while ago. It got really popular. There was a post on Reddit that had just a list of all the AC triggers you could use for 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 5, 6, 7, and 8. You just put them into your ACT, easy copy paste, and you get callouts for all the fights, everything relevant. The knockback in 05, the tether, the chains in 06, which is like the only mechanic melees have to do. It's like the only mechanic you have to do. You get some beep in your ear. It's all right. I guess this is just truly a training dummy now.
Yeah. All right. Let's get on. Let's shotgun through some of these questions here. This one is a question about the Scholar Dissipation. How it was a trick in Heaven's Word, and that was technically an exploit, and no one got banned for it. Do you guys remember that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
You could dissipate and still have your fairy up if you dissipated right as you finished the cast.
Okay. So how do you guys feel about that not having a strong response from Square Enix? Does that just kind of bleed back into our conversation about not enough attention to it?
That one I feel like is pretty easy to explain actually, because a lot of the community was like, oh, dissipation is useless. This is the only way we can use it now. Okay, that's it. Now, yeah, there's nothing else. It's
okay.
Like this is the only way. Like 99% of the community was like, dissipation is bad. Like even if like people knew better, that's what got spread around, so nobody used it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, this was the only way that people would actually use the ability, so people didn't mind. I feel like
so it's kind of like Nisi, right? It was just like, this is just one of those things that the fight was so ridiculous until that was put in there, where we could just kill 2 orbs at once, and so no outcry really happened, and they just left it. Kiyokai, you on the same page with that?
I guess it seems like it was really insignificant, so I just didn't really care.
It was such a small power spike for Scholar. It didn't really change anything, so I sort of shrugged my shoulders. I didn't use it for a little while to see if there'd be any response, because there was a big Reddit post about it, so I gave it like a few days of waiting and seeing if they were going to say anything, and then I just started using it, and I was just I don't think they're going to do anything at this point.
I remember Nari bringing it up because she just didn't want to use it because she felt like it was just going to get patched anyways, kind of thing. So even though it wasn't like we didn't have have a discussion about it like being ban worthy, but like it just didn't. It just was insignificant, waste of time kind of thing to even learn it or use.
It was such a small benefit in the grand scheme of things.
So we have another comparison here. This comparison is saying, how come the community generally accepts data mining when it's clearly against TOS and the developers don't want it, but it gets a lot of positive feedback from the community?
The same reason that it's commonly accepted that kids want to open their presents before Christmas, but they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can open one present the day. No, it's not how Christmas works. You wait till tomorrow, but they're so excited for that present, they want to open it.
I think some people justify it, or you could justify it by is Square Enix is giving you those files to be on your computer, and then are you technically in ownership of those files at that point in time? Like, I don't know the legalities of all that stuff, but like that's the only way I can see the justification.
It is in the terms of service. It literally says you cannot data mine.
Okay.
There's also something funny about this, because if you ever look at all the data mining threads on Reddit, they'll tell you everything except for the music. And I think it was stated it was because Salkin asked them specifically not to share the music, and the community, for the most part, respects that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
for the most part, I mean, there's people who don't, but they're the same people who use Ungarmax, right? The people are like, hey, you're not supposed to do this, but people do it anyways. Then people lose respect for those people, and then they can't publicly come out and be obvious about what they're doing because of how much backlash they would get. And that's kind of the same thing with releasing Soken's music before he wants you to actually hear it. But people still do it. People still listen to it. I mean, you can't prevent it is the problem. It's impossible. But yeah, I guess data mining is, and I would say, to go into your example again, Kyo, it's more like the kids are told not to open their presents, but they say, fuck you guys, as soon as you go to sleep, I'm gonna go rip all my presents open and open them anyways. And you got to deal with it. And the parents they have no way of telling the difference.
Oh, I was just explaining the urge.
Oh, the urge, yeah.
People, like the kids, want to open their presents. So when somebody opens the presents for them and hands it to them, they're going to be like, I know this isn't right, but I'm going to peek anyway because it's on Reddit now and I can. But it's like ultimately at that point, it's up to the moderators. Like the moderators are the ones with the power here to say data mining is not allowed because it's against the terms of service. They don't, and the data mining threads still exist. So we have it.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'd argue that it kind of generates some good publicity though for the patch and gets people excited and wanting to play though because they see some of it. Obviously, it could ruin it for some people, but I don't know if that is highly negative just because of that reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've talked to the moderators in Reddit too, or I've talked to Resuf about it. And, it's been a discussion, like if data mine should be there, but in the end, it's how are they going to stop people from doing it? If they don't get it from Reddit, they're just going to get it from a different website. They're just going to figure it out, and it's just going to be there. And so what is he preventing from disallowing people from seeing it on Reddit?
You use some very interesting language there, Frosty. I don't know if you caught that.
Which language?
I like the language you used there because it was something that people think should be there. Harkens back to our previous discussion about parsers.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. It's sort of like we've actually set a precedent where people are getting something in the game from ACT that they want, and data mining now cannot actually be affected by that because people want data mining, even though the terms of service says it's against it. And then you have this conflict where data mining starts to exist anyway because Square Enix doesn't look at that and punish it when it actually happens. I feel like they could contact the Reddit mods at some point and say, hey, you guys need to ban data mining threads. It's against our terms of service. We wouldn't have.
I don't see that like exactly you said. If Square Enix cared, they could cut it off because Reddit gets interviews and stuff from SE, and I imagine they could be like, well, you're not going to get this anymore if you guys don't start cracking down on this.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure that discussion has happened at some point. In fact, I bet money on it. But here we are. We'll have Hellscythe? I never remember the name. Data mining dude.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I honestly. Half the time I'll see pictures pop up on Twitter or something, or I'll see other stuff. I never really heavily investigate it because it doesn't matter to me because maybe I'm not good enough player. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just arguing the legality of it here, but I love reading the data mining threads. I love getting little previews. It's the patch preview that we don't actually get from the patch preview. So
yeah.
I like to see all the new weapons, new armors, and how they look. That's the best part of it for me.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of raiders, they probably already okay, what is my best in slot? Already trying to figure it out, kind of thing. Right on, as they're waiting for the patch. So
yeah. All right, and so let's see. I'm trying to find the next question here. Let's see. Were you guys aware of Ungarmax before it was reported on Reddit?
No.
No?
The second one?
I guess the one that gained traction.
Yeah. I knew about it before the one that gained traction.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew about it as well before before it gained traction. Yeah.
Did you?
I'm so informed.
I didn't know about anything until it showed up on Reddit. I literally had no clue what Ungarmax was because I didn't do Squatch and stuff, so I was completely out of the loop. All I heard was Unga Booga. For some reason, I was like, why is this funny? am I missing something here? It's just like, when those memes happen and someone says a meme and you're just like, is this supposed to be funny? Then you have to like get clued into everything. And but I was just completely out of the loop. I mean, did you guys know once you heard about it that it was going to get the traction and the attention that it did? Just knowing what it did?
I legitimately, because I wasn't the one using it, I didn't I guess it didn't line up to me at the time, and that's kind of why I just like kind of shrugged it off, and like because I didn't realize the full details of what happened. I didn't until that Reddit post. I didn't know about the damage boost, to be honest. So I just kind of shrugged it off and was like, whatever, because it was being used in the context of not using it for serious reasons. So.
So kind of same thing here. Like there is a person in my group that did use it during like before it was public knowledge, and it was used for like non-serious things like everyone fell off of O5S right before the ghosts come out. Okay, this guy's just gonna go in and one shot the DPS ghost with it, and then comes back out. He's the only one alive. Whatever. Right? Doesn't really matter. But in my case, it was this person had I talked about it earlier. This person had already reported this to the GM, and again, the response was literally, "We can't tell you if it's an exploit or not. Use it like with your own caution." So I mean, I can't really argue against that, right? Because the GM literally told him, we can't tell you if it's an exploit or not, even though it's pretty obvious.
But he did say use it at your own risk.
Right. He did say use at your own caution. But at the same time, he didn't say, no, you cannot use this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think as soon as they say use it at your own caution, you have to like just say, all right, I could get fucked here. Like, I don't go into like a neighborhood where I think I'm going to get shot. Because I'm going into that neighborhood at my own risk. If I think that there's something wrong with that neighborhood, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go to a different neighborhood and get my boba tea. All right?
Yeah, use at your own risk is usually a warning, not an allowance to keep doing something.
Or at least that's how I perceive it.
But it depends on how you perceive it.
Yeah,
yes.
It does. It does. I think now it should be perceived that way, right? But okay. So this is a question from... Go ahead.
I was going to say, had I known the full details of exactly what was going on, I guess I would have been like, no, don't do that. But like, I feel like I was a little bit ignorant to the situation because I didn't really investigate it farther than maybe I should have. And that's that I should have told the people not to do it,
Right.
I didn't even actually know what it was for quite a while because it's like Ungarmax. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I've never done squadrons. I've never gotten them past level 60. I've never done the squadron dungeons. I had no idea what it was. So I'm like, whatever. And yeah, now the funny thing is, so before the whole public not Reddit post thing, so in my group, we did do like a dungeon run, and at the very end, like there was just this random Ungarmax to like hit the last 5% of the boss, and it was that run was live logged on FF logs, and everyone in our group got 100% on that log, and somebody on the FF logs Discord found it, called it out, and this was like weeks before like the whole Reddit post thing, and nothing ever like it for some reason it didn't become public knowledge. I don't know. So that was just an interesting experience.
Okay. All right. Here's a question. It says it's from Zeppy. I don't know if it's from Zeppy. He's asking if he'll get banned for having an ultra wide monitor.
No, obviously not. But to be fair,
I love my ultra wide. Don't take it away from me, okay?
To be fair, I actually do think it's interesting that you can actually buy power in this game because ultra wide is actually an advantage. An increase in your visibility is a straight up in-game advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That's relevant for basically every single game. Now, when you really think about it, you buy a better graphic card, you get better frame rate. Now you have an advantage because you can react faster. You get a better monitor with a higher refresh rate. You can shoot faster in Counter-Strike or whatever. Now we have ultra wide. Like even back in the day when we were first discussing like the 4x3 monitors versus the widescreen monitors, the 16:9 monitors. Like there was this huge thing. There was this thing with like Warcraft 3 and how like Blizzard never wanted to update to 16:9 because it gave people an advantage, and like people were arguing against it and all of that. But it's been a topic of discussion since basically the day PC gaming was like born.
So the person who has a PlayStation could get an advantage on everyone else by buying a computer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I do think it'd be nice if they added the ability to have a widescreen resolution on a normal monitor. Just you'd have like a crunched view so that you could still see it in the widescreen, because that FOV is amazing when you are actually on a widescreen. So I'd like it if they could do that, but for right now, whatever.
A lot of games do offer that, like upscaling. Just so it's not like it doesn't exist in other games as well. But maybe we'll get to see that in the future. Maybe even as just a visual upgrade. I would really like upscaling, to be honest. Or wait, is it down up? I can't remember if it's downsampling or
I don't remember
something like that.
The terminology
super sampling. Super sampling. That's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another question from just a random person. It could have been Kyo. Maybe Kyo, you put this in this question yourself. All right.
I'm complimenting myself.
Yeah. It says basically, just want to say I always thought Kionu was intimidating, and it's nice to see him on your show. He has a lot of insight and very informative. Yeah, Kyo's usually pretty informative.
Because everyone think I'm intimidating. I'm like, I
You're
don't.
the least intimidating person I've met.
I know, right? There's a little softy. Come on.
Yeah, maybe in like text, like when you're typing to them, they don't see you or hear you or anything. When you're just like talking to them and you call them a piece of shit for not doing enough DPS, then they're like, maybe Kyo's a little intimidating. But when they see you just talking normally here, it's completely different. You're just like a nice friendly guy. Like I'd trust you. I'd give you a key to my house. I'm like, this guy's not gonna rob me. He'll be all right.
To be pretty safe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do something like that to you, Frosty.
Jesus Christ. Fucking Goka.
What?
He always puts in a troll question. He just like fills it up. It's always just like some meme question. Anyways, but I mean that's pretty much all the questions we got, to be honest with you. There's not too much more there. I feel like we did a pretty good job covering the topic that I wanted to cover here. Cheating is it feels like it's such a straightforward thing, but in the end, it feels like we are the people who define it. Even Square Enix, not as much. Like, we define it more than anyone else. I mean, in the end, Square Enix has the last say and everything, but we as a community kind of make our own suggestions on what's right and what's wrong. And I don't know. I feel like hopefully something that we said came across in a way to make it a little bit more obvious that this game is not as straightforward as it may seem to be, and what we can and can't do. Yeah? Kai?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
I agree that it's not so straightforward sometimes, but now after... I'd say Ungarmax is pretty straightforward with full information.
Yeah, 100% straightforward. But I can see how that kind of escalated to the situation that it did.
Yes.
If you guys see anything like that and it comes up and it's like, hey, you can pretty much do double your damage when you're not supposed to, know that that's not something you should do. You should
Don't
ignore
cheat.
it.
Don't cheat, kids.
Don't cheat.
Play the game honestly.
Yeah. Don't use ACT.
I mean,
use that one.
That one's okay, guys.
That one use.
But don't zoom
Please.
hack. But you can use an ultra wide monitor.
But you can use an ultra wide monitor.
Yeah.
Ultra wide monitors are really, really good. Go grab one.
Yeah,
I'm advertising for ultra wide monitors right now. Go grab one.
Exactly.
I really need to invest.
And if you see something that kind of breaks the fight, if it's something that is okay and everyone kind of accepts as breaking the fight and it should happen, then yeah, you can use it. All right, that's fine. Yeah. But if you see something and everyone says you shouldn't do it, then it's not fine. Does that clear up everything for everybody right now?
Crystal clear.
It all makes sense. Guys, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. It's one of those things that like I don't like having these conversations because like I feel like I mean I guess I don't like having to go into them because I feel like some people just meme and they're just like shitty about the whole situation. Half the questions are like, hey, cheating's okay. Why are you excusable? And they just try to defame people and they try to do other stuff. But I hope that maybe this was it gets tricky because you invite the wrong people and you get the wrong types of conversations, right? I feel like I got the right people on the show.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you guys want to say? We'll do last words, then we'll do shout-outs and everything. Last words. I'm going to let Yuki start with the first of the last words here.
Crap. I was going to use the time to think about them while everyone else was talking.
Kyo, you want to do the first of the last words here?
First of the last words. So just remember that when you're playing this game, as you keep going, that when you see things that shouldn't be possible or things that shouldn't happen, if people even try to pressure you into it, just, I don't know, stick to your guns. Don't give in to the peer pressure. I don't know. The Ungarmax thing was just one case of just everybody running away with it and treating it like it was okay because it was so widespread. I even had people telling me that deliberately. And it's just like, sometimes you got to just stick to your guns. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing it. If you think it's wrong, don't do it. That goes for everything, ACT included. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. They may someday punish for ACT, and nobody is immune. So there you go.
I would almost disagree and say that most people are immune because they would probably lose about $1 million or so dollars from the bans that you put out.
I have never heard of anyone that.
But yeah,
that got banned.
They could
ACT.
eventually get to a situation to where you might not be able to.
They could make an example of somebody. They wouldn't ban everyone, but they could make an example of like 2 or 3 people, or even 7 people that were egregious offenders.
I could think of some people that would be they would target to make an example.
SE's just going to go to FF logs and look at the top 10 people on every single class and those people.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
They can guarantee it.
Spam balance to those people.
I hope this doesn't extend into the past as well.
You-
I like that 20% balance, okay?
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez. All right, Kai, you want to say your last words here?
I guess I don't have much because Kyo kind of summarized most of what I would say. Is like just be aware of something that's an exploit and don't be peer pressured into using it. Like I don't really have much else to say on the exploit matter. Like just be careful and like if you think something's wrong, report it immediately. And if they don't if they don't do much about it, express it to the Reddit community because obviously it worked. So and that's how it kind of took off again. So be vocal if you see something wrong in the community.
Yeah. All right, Yuki, you had time?
Yeah, you're right. Mostly, even if you find something, obviously, I talked about earlier. Sometimes even the Square Enix officials, they won't be able to tell you if it is actually an exploit or not. So don't just try not to do anything stupid. And you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Also, GM, I still feel like GMs have little to no power. So don't immediately, like, you can report something to the GMs, but I would say also put it up in community forums, put it up in some places where like it'll get some visibility, and then you can probably get a good opinion of why it's good, like why it's okay or not okay to do that kind of bug or exploit. And
yeah, report it. I mean, seriously, just report it to report it. Have it like somewhere so you can say, hey, I did it.
Right.
The part about putting it up in like Reddit and everything else, you shouldn't be afraid of giving something visibility if it needs to be fixed, right? If there's something that needs to be fixed in the game, and that's why I had this conversation, I'm not afraid to talk about this stuff because it needs to be talked about. One of my things, and this is Square Enix, anyone working there, please help your GM team. Please do whatever you can to fix the forums. No one wants to use the forums. I know that's like your main place where you want to read and get information from. You pull most of your information from the forums, but if we can't give it to you, that's a problem. So please, I'm begging you, focus on that. Focus on how your GMs work in the game. Give them the tools that they need to do what they can do. For all the players out there, please make sure, don't be a piece of shit. Guys, that's the bottom line. If you're looking at something, you're like, I'm doing it because I can do whatever the fuck I want. That's on you. You're gonna get fucked over, and that's kind of all your fault. And I'm not really gonna cry for you. If you want to have fun with the game, play the game how it's supposed to be played, which is me, and that's why I'm snooty about ACT triggers. But other than that, that's kind of all my words here. Guys. Again, let's do shout-outs and everything else. I appreciate you all coming on. You've been great here to talk about it, and I don't think I would have anyone else. I wouldn't cry for Goka the least bit. Sorry. Kyo, do you want to do your shout-outs and just tell everybody hi?
Shoutouts to Zeppi Minato. He's my hero.
Zeppy. Good old Zeppy. He's been on a show a few times. I like the dude. Is that it?
Yeah, man.
Just Zeppy? Fuck everybody.
And Moonkyun. Always there for me.
He helped me with Kefka last night.
And Miwa for being the cutest Lalafell in all the world.
No shout-outs to Elysium.
They get a shout-out every show. They don't need one every single. Fine.
Fair enough. All right. Kai, shout-outs that you want to do?
I would say... I want to say for my whole entire Final Fantasy 14 experience, I wouldn't have as good of one if it wasn't for my static, and a lot of that's been kept together by our static leader, or the guy I co-run it with, Layla Prism River. So I wanted to give a big shout out to him, because that static's been running since Binding Coil of Bahamut, like the very first tier. So that I would not have enjoyed raiding the whole way if it wasn't for that. So that's my shout out.
There you go. No shout outs to Noriko. Nothing. All right. Fair enough. Yuki, any shout outs you want to do?
Yeah, shout outs to my static and Aether. Hopefully I didn't say anything that made you guys nervous. But if you're watching, he's probably watching. I told him I would be doing this weekend, and it would involve a bit of questioning about him. But yeah, shout out to my raid leader. He's a really cool guy, to be honest.
Just to clarify, we're talking about Zaki, right? We're just gonna sit here and not skip around names anymore and dodge and jump around.
I mean, everyone's screaming in chat, but yeah. Shout out to Zaki. He's a really cool guy. And I really enjoy raiding with him. He's I don't think I would have really kept playing this game much longer after leaving my old static if Zaki wasn't the kind of person that he was.
Okay.
He's a really great guy to play with.
Okay. All right. So I take that with a lot of value, because I respect you a lot, Yuki. So that's all it is. But guys, thank you all for coming on the show. It's been amazing to have you all here. I said that 3 or 4 times, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you all for being on the show. It was amazing to have you guys all here. And I will have this hopefully posted up by either the end of tonight or tomorrow morning, so you don't have to watch LBR. You can have something else to watch. Guys, thank you to all the viewers. Thank you, Karara, for being my emotional support in the background. Thank you, Blazana, for the artwork for the show. And thank you very much to Square Enix for making the game that we all play and we all talk about. And, of course, Andre Kane for the music that he provided for me, that cover, that battle song here. I hope that you guys all had fun, had a great time. We're going to do the closing screen here, the credits, which should have been rolled 2 minutes after the show started, right? And then we will do a host here. So hang back for that host. Guys, remember to be cool. Wait. Be good. Keep cool. Stay frosty, guys. Bye. Everybody do your way. Bye.
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 Perfect.